Hello. I figured I'd record this video for Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. For those of you that don't know, and I'm posting this on YouTube, so if any random people come by, they don't. I'm sharing on my Facebook as well, where most people probably know, but my dad had pancreatic cancer for, God, he was diagnosed, I want to say in August or September of 2014. I remember because I was a 2013, because I was a senior in high school when he was diagnosed, just beginning my year. I kind of want to share my story as a child in the situation. I'm 20 years old, but I'm still a child. I was a minor when he was diagnosed. And I don't know, maybe this can reach out to somebody who's going through a similar battle at the moment. I don't even know if I'll publish this because I don't know where I'm going. I hadn't planned anything out. I just decided to do this, and maybe it would, I don't know, help somebody else who's in a similar position right now. Maybe help them feel a little bit better, not alone. Um, as, and I'm gonna release this on National Pancreatic Cancer Day. At least I'm planning to on the 17th, which is I'm recording this on the 12th on Saturday, so I'll be releasing this on Thursday. I guess I'll start from the very beginning. My dad was working over the summer. I want to say it was middle of June, early July. He got started to get jaundice, and he kept going to work. And I'm thankful to this day that his coworkers told him to come home. They forced him to come home essentially because he wanted to keep working. He was supposed to go to a skin specialist on, I believe it was that Friday of that week, but on that Tuesday it got really bad, and his coworkers told him to go home, not to be there anymore. He really needed to get help. So he agreed reluctantly, as he usually did. My dad was kind of hard headed, but that was his best quality, or one of his best. I get that from him. He went in on that same day, and he was evaluated and everything at Augusta Health Medical Center. And they told him on that night that he didn't have cancer, and I'm still very upset. I've gotten better with it over time, but I'm still very upset at Augusta Health for how they handled it that night. I don't know if I'll ever be able to let it go, but they sent my dad to another. They were going to go down into him and put a stent in to stop the jaundice originally. And the doctor made him sit for 24 hours because you can't eat or anything or drink before that. So they just made my dad sit there without food or water or anything of substance for 24 hours. And then when they finally sent him in there, they told him that they couldn't do it and that they were going to send him to Roanoke. So they basically made the man sit there in agony for a day just to tell him he didn't have cancer, which we would later find out that he did. Uh, I Let's just say in the area, if you ever have a medical issue like that, go to UVA. Don't go to Augusta Health. It's a waste of your time. At least in my situation, it was. That's not to say everybody down there is terrible, but the people that had my dad there in the beginning were just awful. And I don't know if I can ever forgive them because I just feel like we could have done more if my dad would have gotten more attention a lot quicker. My dad, I think we waited a couple weeks after that because they told him he didn't have cancer. So then we went to Roanoke Memorial Hospital, and I remember this day clearly. I remember it more than the Augusta Health situation. We went down to Roanoke Memorial, and we sat there all day. I remember waiting in the waiting room with my dad. I remember him being like deadly sick. Like this was before the cancer really swooped in on him, but he was just ill and hunched over in the waiting room and everything. Then they finally got him back. The wait wasn't near as long as it was at Augusta Health. Um, he went back there, and me and my mom hung out in the waiting room for most of the day, and they got his port stuck in to get rid of the jaundice or get rid of it over time. If you don't know, the way the port works is they get it in there, so when you pee or urinate, proper term, it comes out, and eventually your skin color goes back to normal. And they did that successfully, but while they were in there, they found cancer around the pancreas and other organs. And they told my dad on that night that he had pancreatic cancer. That was a hard night for me and my mom, but I don't think it really hit my dad until the next day because he was in so much pain and everything that I guess it didn't really hit him till the next day. I remember the ride home from Roanoke Memorial. They gave him no pain pills, which was just a disgrace. I remember having to drive back, and I laugh a little bit because I remember a funny story. I was driving, my mom was driving, and I was a GPS operator. My dad was laying down in the back trying to sleep, and I screwed up the GPS and sent us in a circle. And my dad just stood up and was like, well, he sat up and he was like, "Do I have to have the surgery and drive home too?" Uh, just being himself. I'll never forget that night because, for a real just garbage day, it was nice to have a little bit of a laughing experience like that. But when we got home, I remember my dad just being in enormous pain and not falling asleep for a while. Usually, we were going to move him out into our living room, but he slept here in my bedroom, which is where I'm recording this thing, because the bed's closer to the ground, so it'd be easier for my mom to get him in and out. And then in September of 2013, he had his Whipple surgery, which is where they go in for pancreatic cancer, if possible. If it's wrapped around blood vessels, they cannot do it for risk of killing or major arteries. They can't do it. But he was lucky enough to be able to have it done, and it was a long surgery. Probably, God, I want to say 13 to 14 hours. I remember waiting in the waiting room for 13, 14 hours, never going to sleep. Me and my mom didn't sleep much that day, or at all, just because of everything that was going on. Um, I remember talking to him post surgery, and we were. I gotta mute this phone. Right in the cover behind a bit. Um, but sorry for that. Where was I? Crap. Oh yeah, I remember talking to him post Whipple, and he was in. We were in very high spirits because they told us that they gotten all the cancer, and me being, I guess the us being not as knowledgeable as we were about about pancreatic cancer at that time, we thought it was all gone, and well, there was a little bit left. We knew there was a little bit left, but we thought with chemo and everything that it would slowly go away. And they told him that radiation wouldn't help him at all; it would just hurt him in the long run. So he went the full chemo route. I want to say he had chemo for about 6 months after that, and it went very well. Um, Obviously, he had his sick days where he wouldn't be feeling well, but he was still my normal dad. He would get up and go out and work. He couldn't work like a normal job anymore because of his internal organs weren't capable of normal construction duty anymore. But he would do stuff around the house that he was capable of. My mom had to kind of limit him on what he could do because he pushed himself a little too much. But in those months, and this is even over the couple of years, me and my dad formed a really close bond, and I'm thankful for that because growing up, my dad was out of town a lot, and I, me and him weren't as close as the father and son should be, and I'm thankful. I'm, God, I wish he was still here, but uh, this is where it starts to get a little hard. I'm just thankful for the time I had with him to actually form a bond with him. Me and him had time to get to know each other. Um, but yeah, back back to the story. So my dad had, and my mom and my dad uh, basically fell more in love than they ever have. Um, it was really beautiful to see. Um, it was a similar situation. They had had their issues over the years, and it was nice to see them bond. My mom stayed home with them most of the time. Sh Thankful for Woodrow Wilson giving her the time off that she needed. But her and my dad would go out riding every single day and just talk and go on rides and hang out each other at the house, and they just fell more in love than I think they ever had been. And I think it was meant to be for us to have that time with him. Let me check if this thing's still going. Okay, sorry. I'm just thankful that we all had that time with him to form bonds because, life gets in the way sometimes. back to the, but over the course of that 6 months, everything was going well. His cancer was regressing and everything. And then I want to say, I'm not good at exact dates, so I apologize for that. But I want to say it was late 2014. No, it was early. What year? It's 2016 now, so it was mid 2015. Yeah, yeah, because he had his surgery in 2013. No, I'm right. Yeah, it was middle of last year. No, it was early. God, I'm terrible with dates, but you get the idea. After that 6 months, he was declared cancer free, which we learned later is just a hunk of, excuse my language, a hunk of bullshit. Um, and we were happy and everything and planning everything out. Okay, I remember this now. It was happening towards the middle of last year. It was around, I want to say June of 2015 that he was told that he was cancer free. Because I remember being home for this. I remember the emotions of being in that doctor's office and them telling him that he was cancer free. I remember us just all crying and hugging that we thought we had made it out of this and that we could move on. Um, and around October of last year, his cancer came back in a very stronger manner. Um, and it wasn't pretty. The thing that upsets me the most is that he had to have his first cancer treatment again on his birthday. That's not right. And I don't blame, obviously, I don't blame cancer centers for that, but that man didn't deserve that. He should have at least been able to enjoy his birthday. Um, this form of chemo that he had to go through now was really tough. He, because his cancer had come back bigger and was wrapped around arteries and stuff now. This cancer was really tough on him. I remember every treatment he'd be sick and tired, and over time, I want to say it was around December, around Christmas time, he started to lose feeling in his feet. And I knew that wasn't a good sign, but he wanted to keep pushing forward with it for us. And we thought that if we kept going, the feet thing would just be a cause of the chemo, and it would go over time. But his feeling in his feet never came back, and ultimately it put him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Most of the Christmas photos we have, he's sitting in a chair, not because it makes a beautiful family portrait, but because he couldn't stand anymore. I remember last Thanksgiving and that was last Christmas. We had as good of a time as possible, but we knew that was the last one that he'd be around. And that was tough. I remember last Christmas, the whole family was up at the house, and God, I wish this phone would stop going off. But sorry, I just got a little flabbergasted when this comes up. But last Christmas, I remember us all up here at the house, and we had a moment where we talked about it, and we knew this was it. And in a way, that was the best Christmas of my life because we were all together, and in a way, it was the worst Christmas of my life because I knew that'd be the last Christmas I'd ever have with my dad. You try to keep hope, but at that point, the doctor had already told him it was 6 months out, that he would not be there in 6 months. And I didn't want to believe him, but seeing my dad fall off the way he did made me believe him. And we went through, and I crumbled. I admire my mom for being as strong as she was. I tried to put up a good front, but I fell apart. I went back to school in January, and every time I went back to school, I had the fear that was the last time I'd ever see my dad. I almost didn't go back to college my second semester last year, but my dad wanted me to go. He told me that to not let my dreams go away because he was sick. but it was hard. My grades faltered because I couldn't focus. I was always thinking about home and how my dad was doing. Um, I didn't call as much as I should have, and by the time I did, he he wasn't all there anymore. My dad started to lose it mentally a little bit around March of that year. I remember calling him on the phone, and me and my dad, I grew up watching wrestling with him. That was the thing we bonded over. And I called him to talk about it, what happened on Monday Night Raw the week before, I think. And he just had fallen asleep around 7 because his body was just tired. And that was when I started to know he was going away because that happened on a nightly basis. And I think the big moment when I finally knew what was happening and it really dawned on me was when I came home around March. I remember because the NCAA tournament was going on. We were watching it that night. And my dad just went through all these stories of his life, like from beginning till now, telling me. And in my mind, I never talked to him completely about it, but in my mind, that was him trying to pass on stories to me and tell me what was really happening. Um, it that was a hard weekend, but I just sat there and listened to him because he was filling me with stories I'll never forget. My dad was a wild guy in his youth. I think I'm a lot more chill than my dad was. But I'll never forget that night, that Friday and Saturday night as long as I live. And I had a little bit of hope because he was very energetic that weekend. He couldn't walk, but he had enough energy to, stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning talking to me. But I wasn't here, so I don't know the specifics, but I left. That was my spring break. That's why I was home that weekend. Um, I went back for the rest of the year. Somehow made it through. I don't know. I still don't know how I did it. Um, and I came back around late August, and my mom warned me before I got home that dad wasn't good. So I get home and I hug my dad, and he's just bones at this point. I hate to put it that way, but I can't put it any other way. My dad was bones. He couldn't walk. He had to like struggle with a walker to walk around, and anytime we went out in public, he needed a wheelchair. His mind had kind of started to drift away. He would tell you things multiple times. He he would just struggle. And me and my mom had a conversation about it, and we knew it was coming. His nurse Monique knew it as well. So we went through the month of May, and we just appreciated every day. He wasn't doing well, but we still were together. So I'll never forget. Our fridge went bad, so we went to Lowe's, and Dad was fine when he left. And when we got there, he got really sick and was not feeling good, but he pushed through it to help my mom because he knew more about this sort of stuff than me and my mom did. But so he got us the best thing he could. I want to say that was mid-May of this year. And that was the last time my dad ever went to town, ever got in a car again. Uh, my dad, uh, my dad passed away in June of this year. Let's say it was early June. Uh, it was early June of this year. I can't remember the exact day. I don't really want to. Um, I remember the night before we knew he was moving on because he was not talking anymore. And I remember me and my mom holding both of his hands, each side of his bed. He'd been confined to a hospital bed at this point that we'd brought into the house. That was the only way. Uh, and he was just, his mouth was agape and everything, and you could tell he was moving on to someplace better. Um, and I'll be honest, I'm not much of a religious guy. Um, But I remember on that night, my dad had really got turned religious since being diagnosed, and he had he watched preacher every Saturday night with my mother, and that was on the TV in the background, but we didn't think anyone was really paying attention to it. And for the first time in years, I said a prayer because it was the most moving thing I'd ever seen. My dad had not moved much in, God, days. But when that prayer came on, he managed, I remember him struggling. He managed to clasp his hands together like this to pray. And I prayed with him. Um, and at this point, it wasn't a prayer of healing him, it was a prayer of moving him on safely and making sure he was good in the next life and helping him move on. I went to bed that night. My mom stayed up with him, and I woke up the next morning. My mom told me my dad was gone. He had passed away uh, in the night. I remember going to, I remember coming out and seeing him laying there. I'd always grown up with, my dad was always a strong man who led our family, um, and was one of my role models growing up. And just to see what this disease had done to him, it had ravaged his body. He wasn't him anymore. He hadn't been him in months. One of the things that I knew cancer took away from my dad was his personality, because towards the end, my dad was always a joke maker. I remember during his chemo treatments, we would always be making jokes, and people would always look at us like we're ridiculous. The nurses loved us, though. Whenever, whether it was him and me or him and my mom, we always managed to have a good time. But towards the end, he kind of lost it. It had just ravaged him so much. And I remember holding his hand. He was laying there gone. He'd been gone for a while. And I got some alone time, which I'm thankful for. I held his hand. And I told him that I would never let him down, that I would do everything I told him I was going to do. And I still live by that to this day. I'm never going to let my dad down. I know he's looking at me. And, God. And I I didn't want that day to be real. I just let out everything I had to let out to him that day. Even though he wasn't there anymore, I'd like to think his spirit was there listening to me. And the aftermath, I've had a rough time the last few months, so I have angry streaks that concern me. I get angry a lot. I'm just it's a mix of anger and sadness. I'm pissed that my mom had to go through what she had to go through, and that my dad had to go through all that he went through. They're both good people. They don't deserve what they went through. You know, you grow up thinking that being a good person will get you everything in life, but this kind of thing just kind of flows into your mind that that's nothing more than just horse shit. Uh, Excuse my language, but yeah, I have my days where I'm angry, and I don't want to be angry anymore. I kind of want to be able to kind of breathe, but I don't know. I just have my days, and I wish my dad was still here. Obviously, I, I there's gonna be so many times, girl. I'm only 20 years old, all right. I'm gonna. There's gonna be a lot of times in my life where I'm gonna need my dad, and he's not here to help me. He's I. He's not here in physical form for me to ask for help, and that's just not fair. I might be a little selfish here, but I just wish my dad was still here. And I'm still struggling. I'm having a hard time. Plus, I, I kind of overdid it after Dad passed, where I had to be strong for my mother. She needed time, so I didn't let my feelings show that much, and I still don't really. I'm not much of a emotional guy, but I guess this video is the most you want to get out of me. I don't know. It's it's difficult. Um, just I'm thankful for one thing, and like I said, I'm thankful that I had that time with my dad because me and him really got to know each other over the last 2 years. But damn, I wish we had more time to get to know each other even more and form even more of a bond. And man, I don't really know where to keep going from here. I didn't tell everything in detail, but I went through uh, a lot, and I know this went on for a while. I don't know how long this is, about half an hour. I just, every day I think of my dad, and especially his birthday was a couple weeks ago. That was a hard day. I just feel this sense of emptiness now, like I'm missing something in my life. Because I go talk to him at his grave whenever I'm here, and I know his physical form's there, but I know he's not there anymore, and that's hard. I just wish I could talk to him one last time, and that's the most difficult part for me is knowing I'll never get a chance to do that again. But I'm trying to keep it together. I'm having a hard time. Uh, but this week is a very important week for not only me, but all the pancreatic cancer families and survivors and those that passed on out there. Pancreatic cancer is one of the most overlooked diseases, and it's a shame because it's one of the most deadly. I want to say it's third in the world in deaths, in cancer, standing third in deaths, and it kills on an average within 4 years of diagnosis, but no one pays attention to it. And that's another thing that pisses me off. It's just, it's a shame. See, I hate being like this. I'm filled with like anger and sadness at the same time. And it's just not me. I like having a good time and I try to do my best, but things like this just hit me. But like I was saying, think about those families. Just think about those families this week and this whole entire month. Um, and if you can, donate to helping them because it doesn't get a whole lot of funding, which is why it's such a deadly disease right now. It could use a lot more funding. And real quickly, I want you people to see this. If I can get the camera to work right. Let's see. There we go. That is a painting. You can't really see much of this stupid light, but this is a painting my dad made with my entire family. He became a really good painter. He realized an ability when he stuck at home with one of the things he did. And it's our entire family. He calls us the best family ever. And I kept it. We kept a lot of his paintings. Some of them we buried with him, so we could have them forever. And this means the world to me. This is the ribbon that was placed on my dad's casket the day he was buried. And not just keep this as a reminder of what happened to him and to help those in need more. Obviously, it doesn't look like the shape of a ribbon anymore. It's kind of faded over time, but it's hard to keep a ribbon in place. But I feel like he's here with me, and I have that with these two things right here. He used to have a picture of me and him together where this was, but I placed that with him. So that's another big thing, too. I buried a picture of me and my dad with his casket. I placed it with him when he passed away. And I replaced it with his picture right here. So that's symbolic. I feel like a piece of me went with him. In one way, it's not. But I got to keep and that means the world to me. I know this is kind of all over the place and disjointed, uh, but I didn't really plan it out, and I apologize for that. I know it's all over the place. But like I said, please think about the families that suffering from pancreatic cancer this month. Every other cancer gets time, but pancreatic cancer seems like it never gets attention, which frustrates me. Um, and I want those out there that are in a position like me to know that you're not alone, that people go through the same thing, and that there are people out there to help you. I've experienced plenty of help, and I'm thankful every day for it. Um, and I'm always available to anybody that wants an outreach. I feel like I can connect to people more now because I've lived through those tough times. But I figured I'd come here and tell my dad's story because not a whole lot of people know it, and they just know the end story, and that's not all that everyone should know. People, to understand the true wrath of pancreatic cancer, they need to hear a story from beginning to end, not just the end. The ending shows you more the catastrophic, but seeing the effect it has on family members from beginning to end kind of shows the overall effect it has, and that's why I made this video. If you spent the time sitting with me for 30 minutes to hear this story, I appreciate it. But thank you very much. I'm sorry I couldn't elaborate more, but I didn't want to break down in the middle of this. I tried to keep it together. I hope I did a decent job. Thank you very much. Goodbye.